Welcome everyone to an episode of the Ol'Timers Comic Book Show. I'm your host, joining me, Hughes, and on this Star Wars weekend, as we are recording, it is the Professor.
Hey,
Hey,
Johnny, what's up?
oh man. Well, all miscommunications, missing people. You know what it is? It is Revenge of the Fifth. That's all
Oh,
I'm saying.
that's what it is. Yeah, it's true. You have to pay for the fourth somehow, right?
Yeah, my wife was like, "Is that the is that this is a real thing, Revenge of the Fifth?" I was like, "Well, it's better than BJJ on May the 14th or March the 14th. That's less real." So, steak and BJJ. Right. So, Star Wars. It's a Star Wars special.
Yes.
Man, what is it about Star Wars that makes us love it so much?
You know, I think it just grows after so many years, and like especially for we're getting older, and even though it's kind of fallen out of fashion with Disney Plus and stuff like that, but here, like, and my son bought tickets to the Star Wars marathon that played yesterday in the
All right.
theaters. So I am coming off 24 hours in the movie theater watching the entire catalog of Star Wars over the last day. But so this is really kind of in my head, right?
Right.
Because I was telling my son stories about how my dad, when in 1977 when Star Wars came up, when we used to go to the drive-in, and
All right.
he used to have a big pickup truck, and we of course back then we used to all sit in the back of the pickup truck,
Mm-hmm.
and he used to just slow drive up our street, and all the neighborhood kids knew we were going to the drive-in to see Star Wars, and they just come running out and pile in the back of the pickup truck. And I remember my dad, just like, we must have had like 7 or 8 kids in the back of the truck going to see Star Wars, and it was like just an amazing memory that I don't think about too often. But when my son and I went yesterday, and sharing these memories with him about, like, when I was a kid, and being able to experience the movies how they were meant to be seen on the big screen again, and for my son, the first time for the first 6 movies.
Wow.
So it was a good time, and those movies are meant to be enjoyed
Mm.
in a theater. So it was great, and all this expanded universe stuff, which we're gonna get to.
Oh, of course. Did they run them in order then? Did they go 1 through 9? Or
They
did
did.
they?
Yes, they
Yeah.
started with Phantom Menace because Phantom Menace is actually experiencing its 25th anniversary this weekend.
See, I saw this. I saw something on Twitter, and it said something along the lines of 25th anniversary of the Menace, and you should give this movie another chance. Surely it's not as bad as you think it is. I'm not saying anything, but
Jaja still sucks.
yeah,
He's even worse now than I remember him in 1999.
Sucky character.
And so, but that, and I was telling stories about my dad a minute ago.
Mm-hmm.
The Phantom Menace was actually the last movie I took my dad to see before he passed away.
Man.
And that, no, it's a great memory. It's a great memory. Being there in the theater with him. And even back then, I was 27 years old, and being able to take my dad to one of the movies that he used to take me to, and to have us both enjoy it. And he liked it. He thought it was good. So that's all. Yeah, that's all I want.
I think one of the things that, for me, that people tend to forget about Star Wars is that Star Wars is inherently a kids thing. It's a kids movie.
Same thing with comics, Johnny.
Well, to an extent, but then
we just never outgrew it.
But then exactly, and then so when people, especially people our age or around our age, start giving it the Star Wars isn't my Star Wars, yada yada yada. I'm always tempted to say, well, the reason it's on your Star Wars is because you've changed. Star Wars hasn't changed. You've changed. You've gone from being this kid who believes that the good will always win, and that all the characters, all the aliens just happen to get along and know each other, and not worry about the time difference between how long it takes you to get from Hoth to Bespin without light speed, all that sort of stuff that we think about now as adults, we didn't care about when we were kids. So then, really, in essence, Star Wars hasn't changed. We have. I mean, fair, there's going to be societal impacts on it. Of course, there are, like there is with everything. But in essence, it's still just a kids' movie, man.
Yeah.
Still just a kids' movie, and it's great. I love it. There is no, for me, there is no other series consistently had such a massive impact on culture. You know,
Absolutely.
how many times you had a bad feeling about this? Yeah, that's that.
Yeah, all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have a bad feeling about this.
Yeah, I thought this smelled bad on the outside. You know, these are lines that just, you know, I think the amount of times I've called my wife a scruffy looking nerf herder. It's
Yeah,
just like,
who's scruffy looking? I say that all the time.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So the impacts, everybody, whether you like Star Wars or hate Star Wars, everybody knows who Luke Skywalker is. Everybody knows who Darth Vader is.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yep.
You know, and all joking aside, I mean, my wife, her favorite one's the Jedi, Return of the Jedi, because it's the one with the teddy bears in. I'm like, every time. But you know, it is what it is. You know, Princess Leia in the gold bikini, all of the things that have kind of resonated. My mum and dad took me to see Star Wars the first time in '77. Yeah. And then by the time Jedi rolled around, they divorced, and they took us to see it separately. So,
oh, you got to see it twice. There you go. Bonus.
Yeah. The Empire Strikes Back. I went to see, I'd have to think the photo, but we went to see a double bill, Star Wars, followed by The Empire Strikes Back. And then when it came out, there's a stormtrooper dressed up. This is back in the day when cosplay wasn't a thing.
Yeah.
You know, there's a photo of me just looking at him like this, giving him the side eye at his blaster, thinking, oh my God, it's an Imperial Stormtrooper. You know, so, yeah, the Star Wars was a film for my youth. It was, you know, Han Solo's my second favorite character. Chewbacca's my first one. I'm joking. Of course, it's Han Solo. Han Solo, then Chewbacca. So, you know, it's just unbelievable how much of a massive impact it's had. The fact you took your dad to see the Phantom Menace, that's great, because that was the start of the Renaissance.
Yeah.
After the special editions that came out, which after the Star Wars one weren't particularly that special, to be fair. I don't need any extra scenes getting from one to the other, but
it was well, Star Wars was the one that
you
know. Yeah, but what are you gonna? You can't release Star Wars without releasing Empire and Jedi, so they had to tool it a little bit. And Empire and Jedi, the special editions are just more kind of matte paintings in the backgrounds than anything else. So
one of the funniest things about back in about, what was this, about 80, no, 92, 90, well, it's early in the 90s. We have satellite TV over here, not cable TV, although we have cable now, I suppose. And we're flicking through the channels and there's nothing on it. There's like there's a German channel and they were showing The Empire Strikes Back. And it was right at the bit where the Luke hits Bespin and then tries to chase that. So me, my then first wife, and my friend, we sat and we watched the last 20 minutes, 30 minutes of this movie in German. Then we looked at each other and were like, go watch it in English now. So we then put Empire on, and then of course watch one Empire. And this is like, we started at like 9 o'clock at night. Once you watched Empire, you go watch Jedi. This is the way it works. So
you can't stop now.
1, 2 o'clock, my friend drives home, and my wife, so class. But for all the love that we give, or some people dislike, the expanded sequel movie, it has to be said that without this first book that we're talking about, you know what? Some of this might not have happened.
Yep.
I know in the past we've talked about Dark Empire, but this was the next big thing that came out comic book wise. This is Tales of the Jedi. Now, while we're looking at the Marvel edition of this one, however, so we do need to say kudos to Dark Horse, because back then Dark Horse were the publisher of choice for Star Wars books.
Yep. Marvel had let the license expire,
Yep.
or they didn't renew it,
Mhm.
and of course, so Lucasfilm went over to Dark Horse, and Dark Horse, I think the selling point there was they wanted to make new
Mhm.
new stories, new books,
Mhm.
this is we call this the expanded universe, the
Yep.
EU, and
Yeah.
this has already been started. Tales of the Jedi or the expanded universe had been started in the books by Timothy Zahn with Heir to the Empire,
Love them
um,
books.
and then it blew up, right? The
Mhm.
novels just blew up with X-Wing Squadron, and then just a continuous, almost maybe once or twice a year, you
Mhm.
get the next paperback book, and
Mhm.
you'd be able to kind of devour that with the main characters, and then
Mhm.
they'd start doing some offshoots of little known characters. I remember getting these anthology books with like the Tales of the Bounty Hunters,
Yeah, yeah.
Tales from Mos Eisley, where they kind of
I
like
had that one.
where they kind
Yeah.
of fleshed out all of the background characters, and that was huge back in the early 90s. Was we started wondering, who the hell are all those characters in the cantina?
Yeah.
Who the hell are all those bounty hunters that are going to the hunt?
Yeah.
We have their action figures. We've had them for years, but we didn't really know anything about them. And
Yeah.
then what's the big thing in the expanded universe? Oh my God, Boba Fett's still alive? You
Is
know,
he?
well, that's the thing. That was what I remember being huge, because we were doing the comics and the
Mm.
books, and then all of a sudden they started doing Boba Fett, how he came back, and that's actually one of the stories they kept in the expanded universe on Disney Plus when they brought
Mm.
Boba Fett back, how he survived the Sarlacc pit. So
So you're absolutely right. Marvel, their run, and we're going to have a look at their run in a little bit, lasted for 107 issues. Those
yeah,
last few issues are absolute turgid. Oh my God, we've run out of ideas. All right. So that dropped not long after Return of the Jedi. I guess they couldn't work with Lucasfilm to come up with new ideas or new villains or whatever. Dark Horse came up with the Dark Empire stuff, and then went backwards.
yep.
So for everyone who complains about the prequels,
Mm-hmm.
blame Dark Horse. All right, so this is this is written by the late Tom Veitch. I hope I've said his name right. At the time, he was a bit of a Star Wars guru.
Mm-hmm.
So, arts by Chris Gossett, inks are by Mike Berrio, letters are by Willie Schubert, colors are Pamela Rambo. And I've got to say, we don't normally shout out covers, but Dave Dorman has to be recognized as one of the major players when it comes to Star Wars comics and Star
Yep.
Wars merch, just for the covers of the books on there.
Yep. For sure.
Yeah. This isn't actually the first appearance of this character. The first appearance of this character was in an anthology book, Dark Horse Presents. I think it was Dark Horse Presents. It was one of those. It's an anthology book. I'll have to check it out. But go on, Professor.
Yeah, so I mean, this was the beginning of the extreme backstory
Yeah.
for the Star Wars universe, right? I mean, because we had, up until this point, we had the original trilogy, we had a
Mm-hmm.
couple of the books come out that expanded on what happened after Jedi,
Mm-hmm.
and then of course we had Dark Empire came out, and then you know, if you remember Dark Horse before this came out, it had Dark Empire came out, and
Mm-hmm.
then they started reprinting the old or new droids stories, if
Yeah.
you remember that. But this is the first full on new characters, new history. This is your new Bible coming out of what has happened between millennia before the Empire. So the main character here, his name is Ulick Keldroma, and this limited series basically is a setup. You know,
Mm-hmm.
you're getting like 5-issue story where it kind of shows, Ulick and his brother, I think his name is Kay Keldroma,
Yeah.
and then their friend there, and I don't remember the other name there for the
No.
but anyway, this story, they're Jedi. They're meant to keep the peace, and that's what they're doing. They're going around to the different settlements here, and this story, this first story, just doesn't really have a lot to do with what comes after, right? With the Sith. They might mention the Sith a few times. I can't remember if the Sith are major players in this book, but it is basically, you know, a setup for what's to come more than anything. The Star Wars Tales of the Jedi leads into the War of the Sith. I'm gonna go back into my app and find out exactly the. Give me a minute.
Yeah. So whilst you're doing that, let me give you so for me, I liked this book the first time around. I don't think it had the attraction that the main book did. I have to say, I got a little bit waylaid by the fact that it didn't have the regular characters in, but that's just me being me. I've got what have I got? I've got series. Let's see. We've got Dark Lords of the Sith, Redemption, The Fall of the Sith Empire, The Freedom Nad, Uprising, Golden Age of the Sith, and The Sith War. All at various times. I mean, this book's from October '93. eBay, you can get it for a tenner. Grade 9 on Go Collect have it for $12. It's not an expensive book.
No, and none of these Dark Horse books are. You know, they are now. You know, Disney or Lucasfilm will tell you that these aren't canon anymore, right? But we've seen over the last couple of years they are kind of picking the cherry tree when it comes to what gets in and what's not in. You know, to me, this until they actually come out with something in the Star Wars universe for Disney that happened 5,000 years before the Empire, this is still canon to me. We've seen what these stories have come out. We've seen the Jedi holocrons that actually made their way into the actual movies.
Agreed.
We've seen
Thrawn.
We've seen many of the you'd call them MacGuffins, right? The little gimmicks that the stuff, the artifacts that they show in these particular books turn up. So it's interesting, especially when you see something for the first time. Some of the ship designs you see here make it into the films. So it is interesting to kind of see some of these characters, some of the relationships. But this is your typical Star Wars storyline, right? You have the brothers that are together, and then Ulick gets seduced by the dark side and becomes a dark Jedi and becomes a Sith. And the series actually really follows Ulick and what he goes through. Other characters they introduce in this particular book that appear in the Expanded Universe novels, Exar Kun, the Sith Lord, the Freedom Nad, some of these characters that have big roles in this.
Isn't Exar Kun the guy that runs Black Sun?
No.
Exar Kun
was the dark Sith Jedi that was buried on Yavin, if you remember.
Yes, I do know. Of course he was. Exar, he was the spirit, wasn't he? That right in him. Oh, right, yes, because he got the young lad to take the Star Killer, the Sun Killer. Oh, so it's funny because you look at Ulick's story about a guy being so cocky and arrogant, and I'm so brave and I'm all this, and he gets seduced by the dark side. Who does that sound like? Who do we know that sounds like now?
13th Crusader?
Yeah. No. What's his name? Anakin, right? When you look back at some of this stuff, you're like, it's, it hasn't been foretold. I don't know, and there are only so many stories you can build on, but the idea that the Jedi were arrogant and kind of lost in their own importance is a talking point in there. It's definitely in the prequels.
Yeah.
Through Star Wars through Jedi, they're more revered somehow.
Yeah.
And then by the time we hit Force Awakens to Last Skywalker, they're kind of like a myth. Did they really exist? You know?
And later on in this storyline, when Eula Keldroma starts the Sith War, and the Sith go to war with the Republic, the Sith recruit the Mandalorians, and that whole side of the story, that all gets fleshed out in the Clone Wars series. So the cartoon, I mean, and so a lot of this stuff, Clone Wars and Rebels are still like canon for Disney, but when you take the Clone Wars series, you're taking a big fat chunk of all this stuff that Dave Filoni took as influence for his backstories in Clone Wars. So
it's an interesting take for sure. It's great to see the kind of, I suppose, the seeds being planted to grow into what we expect or what we get from Disney Plus and the new movies as we speak. The art in this book, I think, is a little bit clumsy in places. I don't like the lettering. The lettering's a little bit scratchy, but this is probably Dark Horse doing Dark Horse things. So,
agreed. They were the distant number 3, number 4 for a reason, right?
Yeah, true that. I think Star Wars, very much like Star Wars helped Marvel, I definitely think Star Wars helped Dark Horse as well. So that's a fair shout, I suppose. Should we do another one before the break?
Sure.
Let's have a look. So we're going to take a dive. When we talk about Star Wars comics, I don't know about you, but I automatically think of the first Marvel run, Volume 1. And there are some absolute gems in there. Don't get me wrong, there's some absolute stinkers as well. But there are some absolutely fantastic creators on these books. Think people like Dave Michaelini, Walt Simonson. Who's the guy that I was just thinking of and it's just got out of my head?
Howard Chaykin.
Howard Chaykin, the Flash artist. Oh, what's his name?
Carmine Infantino.
There you go. Tom Palmer.
Yep.
Tom Palmer was Mr. Star Wars. He has to be. Has to be. And we're going to take a look at a few of their books now. We're going to start off with this beauty. This is Star Wars 50. From book, where's my notes? Because I read this. From issue 45 onwards, the series is set between Empire and Jedi, which is a huge, huge risk because you've got to bear in mind Empire had the great big reveal at the end, and I won't tell you what it is. Go and watch the movies. And also, you're down Han Solo.
Yep.
So you can't. There's two things you can't have a lot of. One, you can't have a lot of Darth Vader, and the comic books can never, ever, ever find Han Solo. 50 kind of does a little bit of an end round on this one. Written by Archie Goodwin, who I believe at the time was also writing the comic strip, which Dark Horse collected into books as well.
You're correct.
Al Williamson of the Empire Strikes Back adaptation fame and the comic strip is the artist, and I love Al Williamson for sure. He is up there for me. Although he has helped out with Tom Palmer and Walt Simonson, Ed Stewart on letters, and Don Warfield is the colorist. For me, this book is probably the start of the best run of Star Wars comics. What do you think?
I agree with you. And we're gonna look at this book as one of the gems that you were talking about earlier, but we're also gonna look at one of the ones that is not exactly a gem.
Yeah, we'll get there. Shh, don't spoil it. All right, so this is the Crimson Forever. The way this works is the galaxy is under the sway of a disease, and it's taking its toll on poor Luke Skywalker. Princess Leia has to find Lando and Chewie, stop the search for Han Solo, because Chewie knows something that might save the galaxy, and of course, Luke Skywalker. So Han Solo does appear in this book as a flashback, cleverly done, it has to be said. Al Williamson's space opera at its best. It has also. Look at this. I mean, they can never draw the Millennium Falcon right. I'll say, let's get that out of the way now, right?
Yeah, yeah.
It is the most,
Well, it's got to be the hardest technical drawing to do. If you're not if your wheelhouse is like faces or certain scenes, you're not going to be able to draw the Millennium Falcon unless you spend months trying to do it.
Yeah,
so.
True, but it's not like they get paid for this, is it? A lot of photo reference art in here that gets utilized beautifully. The Millennium Falcon still feels a bit shady in places. Great TIE fighters. Oh, look at that blockade runner. How good's that blockade runner there?
Yeah. And that's that, you don't see the blockade runner a lot in the books. So it's interesting.
That lift is probably from the Empire Strikes Back adaptation. Not that I'm saying that it was done that way, but still. The thing that always makes me laugh when I see Al Williamson's art is how many moons and stars there are in the background. Like that's one crowded planet. The solar system. I'd hate to fly through that. But generally speaking, the art
looks cool though.
Oh yeah, it looks very cool. The art is absolutely brilliant. Love this. Star Destroyers. We get to see Darth Vader dream sequence, Ben Yoda. Back in the day, a lot of these were reprints for us in the UK. This was in a summer annual. This story, and I was absolutely blown away because at the time Star Wars didn't have a lot of Han Solo in, and now I was like, yes. Look at all those cool spaceships. Just cool.
Yeah.
The story's a bit kooky in the middle, but it works. It works.
I think Al Williamson was actually the artist on the comic strip too. So this book was done by the comic strip team.
Yeah, it's great. I love this book. Chewie looks great in the Marvel Star Wars comics from this point onwards. They do a great job with Chewie, for sure. The whole Han tries to do a swindle and gets left behind, very much like Han Solo, the Star Wars story movie. Just saying, as you were mentioned before. And then things get a little bit more uptight. Great picture of the Millennium Falcon. As bad as some people draw it, that is the bomb, right?
Yep. It's great. Yep.
Lift from Star Wars again with that's the asteroid scene, but with Lando instead of Han Solo sat there.
Yeah.
And then the Taggy family. These were kind of like a bureaucratic family that was causing problems. They're kind of like the fake empire that the Star Wars comics use to get, they can't use the Empire all the time because things can't change. Look at this. It's gorgeous.
They used the Taj family in the current books too.
That's what I'm saying. So, all this book just works for me. It just works. I reread it earlier today, and I had this daft grin on my face from ear to ear. It is just such a great book. Love it. What's your thoughts on this book particularly?
So a lot of the times when I'm reading, especially these Star Wars comics, I spend a lot of time more on the art than on the story because I love and Al Williamson for this day and age was the best. I always say technical drawing because he's drawing a lot of spaceships. He's drawing a lot of stuff that if you draw a Star Destroyer wrong, you know it. When you look at it, it doesn't look right. Same thing with the Falcon. You said it already. So if you miss a small little detail on the Falcon, people are going to notice it, especially now. If you might be able to look at something back in 1980 or 1978 and it might have slipped you notice, but nothing gets biased now, right?
No, agreed.
So, I mean, you were just going through, and as much as you were talking about the planets and everything, and how it, I think it just looks cool,
I agree.
But then if you were looking at the TIE fighters earlier in the issue, I'm like, TIE fighters don't have the little rockets coming out of the back end like that. So that was one of the little things that I was like, oh, that's a little I think artist's stylistic artistic license there. So yeah, it's very cool, especially when you see these characters like IG-88 and Dengar, where we didn't know anything about them at the time when these came out. To be able to kind of have them active in your imagination for the first time is actually really, really cool. That was something that that the Marvel Star Wars books really did well. And this is one of the first kind of books that I'm looking at going, wow, this guy was drawing a lot from photo reference. This looks like the trading card I had from the Empire Strikes Back set. When I was like 10 years old. So yeah, but there's nothing against that. I wanted the character. I bitch just as much when the characters don't look like who they're supposed to look like, especially that. How hard does that have to be able to? I have to draw this guy and make him look like Mark Hamill, or I have to draw C-3PO and make it look like C-3PO. The detail on it, and we all know from talking to artists, Darth Vader's the hardest character to draw in comics.
Yeah, gotta be. I think for a Titan comic to work, it's gotta look like its original piece, right? So if you're talking to me,
Yoda is a frame ripoff from Empire.
Of course it is.
Yeah,
of course it is. But by the same token, everything else has to work because of it. If anything, these Luke Skywalker's a bit shoddy. The Han Solo face changes a lot, but it still looks like Harrison Ford. Look at that bottom picture there.
Yep.
Yeah. I quite like this picture, the Millennium Falcon suit coming around the shadow there, in the shadow of the Falcon and the shadow of the command center there. It all works just brilliant. It just works well. It just works well. And I think looking back at this, and the middle bit, the kooky bit is still kooky, but you know what? I'm all right with that. I'm all right because I think, you know what? Star Wars can be kooky. It doesn't have to be super serious all the time.
Yep.
But I think that's so for me, this whole run up until around I think I think we looked at it before, the one where Luke and Leia have to find the droid with the plans of the That's probably for me the last great Star Wars comic that Marvel did.
They did.
That's about 81. Is that 81? Something like that.
Something like that. Yeah. The runs that you have here, with the Al Williamson on art, and then you have Walt Simonson come in on art. It was kind of Ron Friends for a little while too. Yeah. Those are the books that was like that. Okay, Star Wars has found its footing. We could talk about Carmine Infantino later. But in Infantino's defense, he didn't really have a lot of source material to work with on the first several issues. Chewbacca looked terrible in the first several issues. He looked like a guy with long hair, an ugly guy with long hair. They didn't look like Chewbacca. So
I don't mind. I've got to be honest. I don't mind the Infantino look. It's all a bit square and a little bit angled and stuff. But some of the bad guys, Crimson Jack, for example, what a great bad guy he is with the Stolen Star Destroyer, the Water Planet and the Sea Dragons. Great. Luke Skywalker and the probe droid on the, again works really well. The idea of Luke floating in space to try and repair something, that was used in Timothy Zahn in the Heir to the Empire, where his X-Wing gets damaged.
Yeah.
So, the art, you're right, wasn't particularly like, wow, it's, but Carmine Infantino, you'd still take it, right? Right?
Yeah. At that point, back in 1977, 78, you would take in whatever stuff they were giving you from Star Wars.
And that's a really good point to make, because back now we kind of think it's just a regular occurrence. Marvel put out more Star Wars books per week than they do Spider-Man books.
Very true. Yeah.
And or per month, I should say. So we talk about things like the High Republic. If Tales of the Jedi hadn't been a hit, we wouldn't have the High Republic.
No, of course not. No.
You know? If some of the other characters, some of the smaller stuff hadn't happened, we wouldn't have had, is it Captain Afra? Everyone loves
Dr. Afra. Yeah.
Dr. Afra. Everyone loves Dr. Afra for some reason. I don't see what the point is, but
I am one of those people that I'm totally astonished she has not made her way to Disney Plus as an original character. And I mean, she checks off every single box Disney's looking for, and I just can't fathom why they haven't introduced her.
I don't read it enough to work out why everyone like her so much.
She's an original character, and she's fun. She's kind of like she's kind of a bit like Han Solo with the whole smuggler aspect. She's kind of got like the techno stuff. She's sexually questionable. So it's interesting. Plus she's kind of like a bad guy, and she plays against the bad guys. Darth Vader's after her. You know,
yeah. I saw the introduction with Darth.
Yeah. She had a couple of sidekicks for a while that were kind of like C-3PO and R2-D2, but they were evil and were killing people. And I just thought the whole idea of it, I'm like, you know, that's where Black Chrysanthemum came from. So a lot of those characters, it's like, you know, it's like the Star Wars dark underbelly. And I was
Dark Star Wars web. Dark Star Web Wars.
It's I think she's an interesting character that could do a lot. That I'm, like I said, surprised they haven't done anything with it yet at all.
Cool. There you go. Right. Time for an advert for one of our other shows. We'll talk about current Marvel books. How's that managed to sneak its way in here? I have no idea. After a short break, it is back. Check out the No Prize podcast.
Hey.
There you had it, the No Prize podcast featuring that guy over there.
Hey.
Talk about current Marvel stuff. Hey, there you go. What more?
Whether I like it or not, we talk about it.
And of course, X-Men '97, which you should be watching because it's pretty darn tootin', especially recently. All right, up to our next classic book. This for me came out as a summer special. Again, reprint. So we got back in the UK. It was a black and white version, so I had no idea what the colors were going on. It is issue 52 from October 81. Oh, I meant to say apologies. Star Wars 50. You can get it's from August 81. You can get it for £195 over here, 110 in the States. There you go. 52. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
October 81. Guess how much this book is on Go Collect for a 9.6?
$10.
180.
Why?
I have no idea. Also, over here in the UK, eBay have this for £295.
That is so weird.
I could not believe it when I saw when I saw this. I was like, "What's going on?"
I mean, it's a great Vader cover.
Yeah, it is a great Vader cover, but is that all it is?
I mean,
I don't know.
I read the book this morning and didn't really think it was that.
Don't say it wasn't all that. This is probably the book that helps keep one of the recurring problems for Star Wars alive. I'm having a look on Go Collect as we speak. There is nothing in there about first appearances or anything like that. You do get 36 pages, but I don't know if that's worth the extra dollars. All right, so this is where we're up 52. So this is written by David Michelini, Walt Simonson's on art. Tom Palmer is here as inker. John Morelli is letters. Don Warfield is colors.
Sorry, Michelini and Simonson and Palmer. That's like Murderer's Row of 1980s comic book creators.
I know, that's how good, right?
Yeah,
And it's on a Star Wars book. Yeah. So basically, the upshot of this is dead simple. The Empire has decided to create another super weapon to rival the Death Star. Please bear in mind, this is only the second super weapon because Jedi hasn't been out yet, in which they create a super weapon. Or The Force Awakens, in which they create a super weapon. See where I'm going with that?
it hasn't been done to death yet.
Exactly. This is probably artistically Star Wars for the next 2 years, easy, 2 to 3 years. These characters, they've now got it in. They look like who they're supposed to look like to an extent. They not only do they look like who they look supposed to look like, they're consistent within themselves. So if that's Luke, and it's not a bad version of Luke, to be fair, but that's what Luke looks like all the way through. It doesn't change. If that's Leia, that's what Leia looks like all the way through. I love this book. It is one of my faves, purely because it shows a different side of the Empire. Not everybody loves Vader. Who'd have thunk?
Right. Then yeah, they kind of, and they go out of their way to not like him. So
well, he's not a likable person. Also, Leia's a bit of a badass in this.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Vader's a little bit wonky helmet-wise, but yeah, as you say, he's hard to draw. It looks gorgeous. The book works. The Millennium Falcon sat there, looks like the Millennium Falcon. The problem, I agree with you to an extent, but in that you turn around and say that, well, I've read this book and it's nothing special. The problem, it's not special because all the Star Wars books of this era are up there. So this is just one of an ongoing trend of a great book, right?
Yeah, sure.
Lift from Star Wars, New Hope. There, just saying. My favorite bit has to be Chewbacca throwing the stormtrooper through the reactor. Very, very cool. Very, very cool. Fisticuffs aren't normally a thing in Star Wars, but it's cool. But the pièce de résistance has to be this panel of Darth Vader as he comes storming back through the airlock.
Yep, that was when you knew that guy that tried to kill him is geez, he's dead meat.
Yeah, he even talks to him there, doesn't he?
Yep.
Yeah, and you can hear James Earl Jones' voice in your head as you read it. That's how good Michelini had this down. He had it down pat. He was like, right, this is what's going to happen, isn't it? And the setup for the Imperials trying to get rid of Vader is so well done, so brilliantly executed.
I just love that panel of this. And as on the bridge, a dead man gulps. I'm like, oh yeah, we all know he's dead.
Yeah.
You don't even have to show it. You know, it doesn't have to be on panel. We know he's dead.
I find his lack of faith disturbing. Other than that, things get a little bit, fire extinguisher form. We've seen that in Jedi. In Empire. We saw that in Empire when they're coming out of trying to escape from Bespin onto the Falcon. Lando being Lando. Interestingly, he wasn't well liked at this point either, was he? Because of the whole, he wasn't part of the gang.
Oh, yeah, because Chewbacca chokes him at the end of Empire and then leaves with him, and you're still kind of wondering what the heck is going on with him. But this is you still kind of don't know with Lando where he ends up. So,
what I think about, like the other thing I like about this book, and maybe you can chime in on this one. You have to use Darth Vader sparingly because you cannot progress the whole Luke and Darth thing.
No, yeah.
This is probably the best issue that features both Luke and Darth after the Empire Strikes Back. And it does so reasonably well and still manages to pay off both characters, you think?
Yeah, I think so. Well, because usually you have to have either Luke or Darth,
Yeah.
and never shall the two meet.
Mm.
You know, because you're right. You can't have that meeting, because then there has to be some kind of confrontation, right?
Yeah.
So you have to avoid that at all costs. Kind of like the same. You couldn't use Han Solo for
Exactly.
years, right? I mean, unless he's appearing in a flashback, which they kind of get away with a couple of times. So, yeah, this is good. It makes both characters look strong. It makes them. And Darth Vader comes off. I mean, you complain about Darth Vader all the time as being the worst bad guy ever, right?
I do.
But he's portrayed a little bit better here in the comics because he's allowed to do stuff. I mean, that's badass when he's walking through the airlock there. Come on. That is some Darth Vader, like, formidable bad guy stuff.
Yeah. My notes for this book, and I'll read directly from my notes that I wrote earlier. Michelini does a great job in bringing the Empire threat, adding a wrinkle to the idea, not in the Empire loves Vader, and one panel shows what a badass he is. You took the words right out of my mouth. At this point, everyone knows my viewpoints on Vader. He fails far, far more than he ever succeeds. And yet he's revealed as like the biggest bad. It's like the Daleks will never conquer the Earth. It's just the way it is. But Darth, for all his threat and all his bluster, he fails so many times. This book, he actually, fair enough, he doesn't get young Skywalker, and he doesn't stop the Tarkin from blowing up, but you can see how formidable he is up to that point. So, yeah.
Well, I think Vader got a whole movie where all he did was win. So,
which one's that?
Empire.
He didn't win an Empire. He lost. He won. He lost the. He won the battle, maybe, but he lost the war.
Yeah, he won the battle. The rebels lose at the end of Empire.
But did he? Did he really?
Yeah. He didn't get Luke, but they got Han Solo. They blew up Hoth. They took over Bespin, and they were unstoppable that entire movie. They're irresistible force.
They failed in their big plan. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, but they didn't fail until Jedi.
But they didn't capture the Millennium Falcon either. Boba Fett did that.
Yeah, but who hired Boba Fett?
Oh, right, yeah. That's true middle management success. That is. I'm the guy that hired the guy that.
Hey, take your wins where you can get them.
I suppose that's a fair shout, considering I'm hating on Darth Vader right now. Yeah. Maybe he finds my lack of faith disturbing. All right, okay, right.
Are we gonna do it?
Yeah, of course we are.
Last one.
Yeah, of course we are. Right. Back in the day, way back when the Star Wars comic was just a fledgling comic. After issue 6, it was right. That's it. Star Wars is done. What do we do next? And Luke went one way, and Han went the other. And for everyone who hates Jar Jar Binks, you ain't seen nothing yet. This is Star Wars issue number 8. Now, funnily enough, this book, I told you that number 52 was $295 and $180 respectively.
Yeah.
Respectively, I should say. This is from Feb 78. You can get it for as little in the UK as £20, and it only costs you $44 for a grade 9. And it's written by Roy Thomas.
It's got a first appearance in here.
Yeah, several first appearances. It's Roy Thomas with Howard Chaykin as co-plot and art. The introduction of Tom Palmer as inker. John Constanza, who we've seen on shed loads of DC books, as letterer. And it's quoted as T. Palmer, so I'm assuming that's Tom again, as colorists. So there's good things in this book. thigh highs in the Star Wars universe. Woo!
Yeah.
And then
Is
of
that supposed to
course,
be Chewbacca?
yeah, and
Yeah.
then on top of all that, you get Jackson, the space rabbit.
Oh yeah. This is the whole reason you picked this issue, and
I'm not doing this.
it doesn't like
Class.
I don't care. It said there's a. All right, go back one page. Go back one page.
That one?
All right. Can you tell me what the name of the bad guy is in this? What's his name?
It is the name of the leader. It's Sergi X Arrogantus, the arrogant one.
Yeah. Who created Gru the Wanderer?
Sergi. Oh, is that what it is? Is this a pop at that?
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
I did not know that.
So Gru the Wanderer created by Sergio Aragonés, and this is Sergi X Arrogantus. And of course, it looks like him with the Italian with mustache and everything like that.
So what was the hate on? I didn't know this. Well, why was there a hate on for?
I don't know if it was a hate on, but I mean, it definitely looks like a hate, doesn't it?
It does.
Like the arrogant one.
Because wasn't Gru the Wanderer a Marvel book at one point?
Gru the Wanderer was part of the Epic line,
Okay.
but it was I think Gru was a licensed character, obviously,
Okay.
so it was not created at Marvel. But
Okay.
yeah, it was one of those satirical comedy books. But
Okay.
interesting though, right? You didn't pick that up on the first
I did
reading
not.
or second
I did
reading?
not. Oh, no, I did not at all. So very much, this is a Magnificent Seven book, pretty much like Star Wars. There's a local village getting absolutely terrorized. They trust Han Solo to put a team together to resolve the issue for them. So he goes around and gets a few people. Quill boy here can fire quills. Then a gangster's more of a gunfighter.
Mm.
Don't have a problem with that personally. Hey ho.
She needs fishnets.
She does need fishnets. And then dodgy looking Jedi Knight. And this is the character. Look at those eyes. Oh, bless. Wham! That's right. It's Jackson the Space Rabbit. He ain't no rodent. What an absolute daft ass character. But he's recently reappeared, hasn't he, in the modern day Star Wars? There is something else quite interesting about this book. Would you like to know what it is?
Well, other than it being Tom Palmer's first Star Wars issue, and it basically, I think he saved the book when he came on it. But the other thing was that it was kind of a rip off of the original draft of Lucas's script was as the Star Killer.
Yeah, absolutely right. Well done.
And then he looks. The Star Killer looks like Farm Boy Luke with the hat. So yeah,
absolutely right. Star Killer was the original Luke Skywalker name, wasn't it?
Yeah, yeah. The Star Killer kid is a shout out to that, and I actually think the droid there is one of the concept drawings from McQuarrie's droids. So,
we've talked about Star Wars. We haven't talked about Ralph McQuarrie. His work is just gorgeous.
Unbelievable that they could take his drawings and translate them onto the film. So
yeah, definitely. Really good likeness for Mark Hamill back then, before he's known his job, or just after it maybe. Good likeness of Harrison Ford. Decent Vader.
Who's the artist on this?
Howard Chaykin and Tom Palmer on inks.
Yeah, so Howard Chaykin was the second artist on Star Wars after Carmine, right? Because
Chaykin did the thing. Chaykin did the adaptation.
Oh,
Carmine didn't come in until after Shire.
So Howard's the first one.
Yep.
Okay, so Howard was the one that actually he fixed his Chewbacca after the first several issues of him looking terrible. Okay.
This storyline, but there's an issue before this with them saying goodbye and Han and Chewie leaving, then finding the bar. Then they get into the fight. Then the kind of get into the fight with the bad guys, and then a monster appears. This storyline lasts 4 issues. 4 issues.
Yeah, it's too long.
3 issues of that's got a space rabbit in that makes Jar Jar Binks look really cool. That's how bad this book is.
See. Now here's the thing about Jax. I thought he appeared a whole lot more than he actually did, because this is the only story he's in, and then he's gone. So that's I just remember Jax in my head being a much more prominent character in the Star Wars comic, and it must have been just in my brain.
Maybe the issue after this, maybe issue 9.
Did they ever do an action figure of Jax?
I hope not. I hope not.
I think they're missing the boat there. I think there would be a lot of people that would shell out some good money for a green rabbit.
I'm not sure, because you've got to think. Where was that panel? Where was the panel? That is Bugs Bunny all the way. There's no way they're gonna get away with having that on display. If you give me 2 seconds, I might find where we're at. What should I say this is? Number 8.
This is number 8.
Let's have a look at. Well, we've got a little bit of time. We haven't got time to go into it in depth like we normally do. We'll have a look at number 9. See if we can see some more Jax, because I'm sure he's in there. I did look at both books. I've looked at all 4 of them, to be fair. Where it is?
Oh, look at that! He looks beefcake in that.
Yeah.
He looks actually more alien in that picture than he did in the previous issue.
Yeah. Let's see. There he is, giving it some lip. Yeah, recap. Yes, we got there. Yeah. There he is again. Interesting how he had powerful legs front legs to do it. Didn't realize he saw his back legs. I didn't realize his arms would have the same sort of power. There we are. The setup for the Luke Skywalker, he goes missing.
It would have been fun if they did him even as a background character in like one of the cartoons or one of the Disney Plus shows.
Yeah. There's Chewie getting chewied up. He gets shot and then he turns up again later in the next issue. So I don't know if that's they have it. Godzilla turns up, and a really dodgy pin-up page.
Is that Howard Chaykin again?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is.
And that Chewbacca. He looks like the family dog, doesn't he?
Yeah. That Leia's pause is the one that gets me.
Yeah.
What's going on there? Oh dear. So they say the Star Wars comics has improved over time. You know, I mean, don't get me wrong. This is 1978, so they're allowed a little bit of. I mean, the film's only been out a year.
Well, and I'm sure those first 6 issues of Star Wars, they didn't even know what they had. They didn't know what they had. So
exactly, they had to work with stills. They had to work with ideas. You know,
yeah.
So it's from small acorns. I mean, look at season 1 Babylon 5. How it got to season 4, brilliant. So these things.
Well, it's Babylon 5 from season 2 is a different show. First season was like something, and then
I like season 1. I love season 1.
Yeah, well, I'm just saying from when they switch captains, it's a different show.
Yeah, should have ended at 4 though. Unpopular opinion. What can I say? So no, that's it. That's how I look at Star Wars through the lens of Marvel Comics.
What better time to do it than Star Wars weekend?
And it is. We've mentioned it before. This was all we had back then. We didn't have streaming television. We didn't have. They weren't even released on video till the 80s. So
you might have had one on Laserdisc, maybe.
Yeah. I remember them being. I remember Star Wars the movie as a TV premiere on local telly one time. That would have been in the 80s. That would have been 81, maybe. That's how long it took movies to get from cinema to TV.
Well, they do it a little bit now, but I remember when they re-released Star Wars
Mm,
in theaters 3 or 4 times, and that was the first time they'd ever re-released a movie
mm,
regularly, just so you could go see it again in the summer. And it probably did gangbusters for a few weeks there. I mean,
mm,
that was because back then you had to go to the theater to see Star Wars because, like you said,
mm,
nobody had VHS players or
yeah,
it wasn't
agreed.
on video till the mid 80s or late 80s, right? So,
Definitely. And you think, um, I think Star Wars and Jaws both together create the idea of the summer blockbuster.
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So, so whether or not you're a Star Wars fan or not, you've got to realize how important the movies are to cinemas and cinema goers and how they create that trend. The latter three came out at Christmas times. So again, driving people to theaters in times when they're not normally going to pictures. So I
Yeah.
don't know, it all works. I for one love Star Wars. I can't split it. I can't split it between Star Wars and Star Trek. I like them both equally. And if that makes me a dishonest fan, and I should like one more than the other, well, tough. It's like different things. It's like chess and checkers. It's like
Mm.
totally different. So there you
Yeah,
go.
if I had to make a choice between the two of them, I would take Star Wars, but my
Mm,
twin brother would take Star Trek.
there
So
you go.
it is
Cool.
but we like them both. I'll go
Mm,
see every Star Trek movie that comes out. I'll go see
me
every
too.
Star Wars movie that comes out. So
Last question then before we kick it out till next time. The best Star Wars movie is
Empire
Professor.
Strikes Back.
It of
I don't
course
even
it's the
I don't have to think twice about it.
of course it's the
There's
Empire Strikes Back.
nothing. I don't think there's anything in film that's ever come close to that movie. And I know that I'm showing my age, but I've just I've never seen another. Oh, so I got to take that back because Avengers Endgame
Mm,
was the only movie since Empire that made me feel on an emotional level
mhm.
what I felt in Empire. And that whole Endgame boils down to Captain America catching Mjolnir and saying Avengers. I never ever thought I'd get to hear Avengers Assemble on the big screen, and didn't realize up until that moment that we'd had 4 Avengers films and they didn't say it. But when
Yeah.
he said it, and I knew like you knew it was coming too, because I was like, oh, he's gonna say it. That was the most emotion I've felt on film since Empire Strikes Back, when the
Mm.
whole "I'm your father" reveal.
I
So
remember I remember leaving the Empire Strikes Back after the first time, heartbroken that my hero was frozen. When you
yep, that too.
it's one of those movies to me that just ends so perfectly.
Hmm.
You're right, the Empire has done a lot of damage to the rebellion. Absolutely. Um, but you think about nowadays they would have just continued on and that would have been another 3 hour epic. And you would
Yep,
have lost that sense of anticipation between Empire and Jedi.
yep,
Was Vader lying? Is it true? What's going to happen to Han Solo? Is Lando a heel? All these questions you have to wait for.
yep.
You know?
It was one of the first movies that was ever designed to have that 3 year break between
Mm,
sequels. And you knew it was the first time you ever saw a movie that you knew there was going to be a part 3, right? When you
mm.
saw the end of Star Wars, you had no idea that you were going to come back 3 years later for Empire. We
No,
didn't know,
exactly,
right?
exactly. I mean,
So,
the knock is the Empire's the middle in the middle, story wise, but it works. And Empire is the best Star Wars movie, bar none,
yep,
bar none.
yep.
There you go. For those of you who disagree with us, you feel free to contact us on our Twitters. You feel free to do that. We won't obviously answer back because we're right and you're wrong. Just the way it works. Sorry, there you go. What can I say? Don't forget to check out UCPM for all your favorite shows, including Professor.
No Prize Podcast, all about the Disney Plus, the MCU, and we talk some comics in there too sometimes when we feel like it.
Excellent. And of course, you've got the sister show, the TDC, the Definitive Crusade, for all you DC diehards. And of course, the interview show outside the panels is back next week with even more great indie creators. There we go. Professor, it's been absolute blast. I'm going to forego my usual salutation. For today, it has to be
May the 4th be with you.
Be with you.